Ladies and gentlemen, might I say, if I may be so bold, TFT is back, baby. TFT's back. It's been in the doldrums for a long time. It hasn't really. It's been okay. And look, we got a lot to talk about today, but one thing you guys need to remember is that TFT is back. It's been saved. Set 10 is gonna be better. Copium may just come true. I'd like to welcome you to the Roll Down podcast. This is season 3, episode number 6. It still says the official OCE Worlds preview below us, but just ignore that. Pretend that doesn't exist. Pretend that Cutler didn't mess that up. Instead, welcome to the show, my co-host, my friend, a man who told me before the show started that he wants this to be a short episode so he can get back to playing PBE. Sol, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yep, it's great to be here. I am officially and completely addicted to Satan.
Let's go. It's been one day, and it's safe to say we're back. You know, crying Michael Jackson meme. We back up. Idris Elba, tell the world that we back up. I guess before we get like too deep into it, because we're just gonna recap everything that we've seen so far and how the set's feeling, what it looks like, the units, everything that's been going on. Sol, how is your PBE experience? Extrapolate on all this fun that you're having at the moment.
Yeah, so PBE went up today, like kind of near the afternoon for us. I've managed to play 6 games so far, and yeah, it has been really fun. I've been really enjoying the set.
And if you had to put a feeling on it, why do you think it is that you're really enjoying this set so far?
Okay, this might be a hot take, or it might be cope, but this might be a bit early. But I think flex play is back.
Ooh, Flex is back, baby. You heard it here first, guys. It's over for these re-rollers. You know, it's time to bring back the re-rollers and throw them back down where they belong into whatever new tier they create. Emerald? I don't want to be Emerald ranked in TFT. That sounds dreadful. I want to be Challenger, where I belong. Guys, if you can't tell, this is gonna be like a slightly higher energy podcast than recently. And I have to be honest, it's because the set looks really good. And I will say that first of all, I haven't actually played yet, mostly because I had a really busy day. However, I did manage to watch some while I was working, and I did manage to take copious notes on what I had seen. And I guess there's no better place to start, I think, Sol, than talking about like just big picture stuff. We'll narrow down into the other stuff soon. I want to talk about the set itself, Remix Rumble. From like a thematic perspective, this is safe to say this is a really big shift to what we're used to.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think that like it's pretty funny. I think that like when I first heard that it was gonna be like a music themed set, like I didn't really know what to expect or really what to think. But then like once I actually started, I got to see the preview, I saw the units and stuff. It like it made sense like so quickly, right? Like this feels like it's been so long and so many years now in the making. Like Riot keeps with every sort of music project that Riot has done, right? Like it's just like like you just kind of realize that there are so many skin lines that are like music themed, and like yeah, it just all comes together really well, and yeah, it's really awesome.
I think it's safe to say this feels like a different set. Like it feels like almost a different game. I don't know what it is. Like
Mm.
I was like watching the previews and watching gameplay today. I was like, this does not look like the TFT that we're sort of like the most recent levels of TFT that we're kind of used to, like set 6
Yep.
onwards. This doesn't look like that TFT. Um, I think it's much needed. I think it's very necessary. I think like uh, they don't do one set a year. You know what I mean? It's not been 10 years of
Hmm.
TFT. We were playing set 3 in like COVID lockdown in March 2020. but
Yeah.
3.5 years on from that, we're at set 10, and this is probably the best. I like for me right now, just looking at it and watching it and hearing the set and getting a chance to just like absorb TFT at this level. Wow, it makes a big difference. Oh, it looks so
Yeah.
cool. Like it just looks so cool. Really happy, really happy with that to begin with. I think that will also keep people interested in the game. You and
Mhm.
I, for the last few sets, have gone very much in and out of interest with the game, and we still manage to turn on our webcams and make a podcast and complain or talk about whatever it is we want to talk about when it comes to the game. But I was really excited to podcast tonight. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't been,
Same.
and it's like I
For
haven't been
sure.
excited. I haven't been excited to like really dig deep into TFT in ages. You know,
Hmm.
excluding the times that we get to talk to our wonderful guests. Um, Thank you last week, Tamira and Huey, for coming on. However, I just want to say, like, this is a really, I'm pretty excited. I want to get in, I want to talk some more. I want to talk some more. We're going to talk about pretty much everything. Oh shit, Tamira's here. Hi, Tamira. Sorry, this is not going to be good on our podcast. Uh, Congratulations on your Worlds performance, Tamira. We'll get there at the
I
end
run
of
at
the,
Worlds tomorrow. Yeah.
yeah, we will get
Final
to
final game was a
OCE.
heartbreaker.
It was.
But
We will get to OCE at Worlds at the end of the episode. It does deserve a good portion of our time. And a big congratulations to Murray. And of course to Huey as well. Huey isn't here right now in the live chat, but a massive congratulations to both of you. So the first place I want to go, I want to talk about units. We're not going to talk about every single unit of set 10 that's come out yet. But I kind of want to do this in like a bit of a structured way. I've just got some notes on
mhm.
like each cost tiering of units. So I'm going to start with one costs here. And the first thing I noticed when I was listening to the preview episode, the preview with Mort, the breakdown of the PBE, what was going on, um, I noticed that we're basically seeing no reprint units in this one.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
I think
there's
it's
a
pretty much
yeah,
all like fresh.
yeah, it's pretty much all fresh. I think maybe I counted like three similar abilitied units. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of units here that feel like they were designed like specifically for a musical set, like, and
Yeah.
as you said earlier, like League of Legends and I don't know, Riot Games, the whole thing has been going more and more in the previous years towards like music and K-pop and artistry and that kind of
Hmm.
thing. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy the overall fact of seeing a bunch of one costs here that I've never seen before. Um, this is like I think this is like having a really big design team now. Like this is like where the dividends pay off for a game like TFT. Like this is so much more creative,
Yeah.
focus. It's so focused. Like we
Mm.
complained a lot in set 9.5, and to this point, when we're recording this, set
Yeah.
9.5 is still out. But
Hmm.
our biggest complaint with 9.5 is that like they just added in a bunch of unfocused stuff that didn't really make any sense. It didn't fit
Hmm.
the thematic purposes that they were going for. This is like a hugely thematic set. Really like that.
Yeah.
Is there any
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
one costs that really stuck out to you specifically? Any units that you've enjoyed playing on the PBE so far?
Uh. I know that the PBE meta doesn't like really matter too much, but because it's only been like literally the first day. But so far like the main unit that jumps out to me a lot is Yasuo. That unit is like incredibly strong and is almost certainly a bit overtuned right now. Basically, he's if anyone's like played Set 4, he's pretty similar to that version of Yasuo, and
Oh
that like
yeah.
it's pretty similar to that version. But this one has like a passive where every time he kills something, he gets permanent AD. So also, yeah, and
Hell
also
yeah.
his trait is true damage, so he literally has true damage, and the other trait is edgelord, which gives him like extra attack speed, which is like basically challenges. So yeah, like Yasuo reroll is like really strong. It's like stands out to me as like one of the stronger comps at the moment. Especially like if you high roll like the Yasuo chosen. spoilers. Yeah, headliner Chosen's in the set. But yeah. Especially like you hire all the free Chosen early. It's very very strong. So yeah.
God, I love every set that has Yasuo. Yasuo is just like the most broken unit of all time, man. It's so good.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and we should say like we mentioned we're recording this like 5 hours after PBE came out or so, maybe 6 hours after PBE came out. So what you're hearing from us is like very initial impressions. Like
Yeah.
maybe by the time you hear this, the game will have been out for a week or two.
Hmm?
Who
He
knows?
might have been gutted by then.
Yeah.
This is literally day one.
By the
So
time you
yeah.
hear this tomorrow, he will have been nerfed 7 times.
I can see
So,
that. I can honestly see it.
and that's just what happens on
Because it's a little bit
PvE.
ridiculous right now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's just what happens on PvE, and that's okay. Um, let's talk about two costs. I noted that there's only two triple traded two cost units.
Yep.
We do get in
Yep.
trouble a lot in this game where the triple traded two cost units just like run the game.
Just
Uh,
do everything.
yeah, to me, from first impressions, it seemed like the two that we have, which are Gragas and Na, do really different
Mhm.
things and enable different things as well. They don't like, there's no like crossover. There's no there's no sort of innate synergy there that really is going to make the game unfun. I think they've learned really well around two costs, I think, and this is like a culmination of a pretty good job in that sense.
Yeah, I think like set 6.5 was like when we had the biggest problem when Sejuani and Rek'Sai were both two cost tri trade units that were both like bruisers. So like it was pretty problematic. It was like just too efficient. I don't actually remember if like they've made that same mistake since. So yeah, it's good to see that the tri traded units like like link into completely different things. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's
Mhm.
just they're just doing a really good job, and I feel like I probably will talk about this a lot, but having more people in the game and in the TFT design team really felt like a bad thing in set 9. um,
Mm.
but it seems like it's really evened out, and they've put a lot of focus here on set 10, which I really enjoy.
Mm.
I want to talk about three costs. One of the things that I noticed when I was looking through the three costs and doing some research and watching some games is that there are so many tank three cost units. There's six.
Oh yeah, there are certainly a solid amount of tank three costs. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
I like that.
Mhm.
However, there's also a lot of
Yep.
traits in this set, and I know that
Yep.
seems silly to say, but like there are a lot of different traits, like flexibility and trait combinations.
Mhm.
Sort of spoilers to what we'll talk about later, are like really important in this set. So having a lot of tanks there is a I think it's a balanced decision based on the fact that we have so many paths that you can take from sort of level
Mhm.
6 onwards at the moment. And that
Yep.
played out pretty well in set 4 as well. We had like such a wide variety of three cost units in set 4 with Chosen that all went in different directions. I think it just works well with the Chosen mechanic. I don't like we can talk about that again later.
Yep. Yep.
Did you have any three costs that stuck out to you so far?
In terms of strength so far, Samira is like stands out as like one of the stronger carries. So just like 3-star Samira reroll, is like pretty strong. You just play it together with the other country units. Yeah, and that looks really strong so far. But yeah, that's sort of the front runner at the moment.
Yeah. Both the games I watched today on stream as I was taking notes and learning about the set, Samira won. So
Yeah, Samira's very strong.
I'm interested to talk about traits and things like that further on. Um, four costs. Um, it looks like there's a good mix of them, but there's only three AD four cost units. I found that interesting. What do you think about the sort of the the balance of four cost units? How do you feel it's sort of looking in this set so far?
Focus feel pretty. Most of them feel pretty strong to me so far. I think that the lack of like direct backline access and also the removal of rapid fire cannon makes it so like some of the more melee focused ones are a bit worse. So for example, like I haven't really seen much Zed being played at all. And Viego feels like mostly like a secondary carry at best. In terms of like the weighting between AP and AD, I think it's like fairly reasonable. I think what AD you've got Ezreal, Caitlyn, Akali actually is AD. I think a lot of people think Akali is like AP, but Akali actually is AD. And then yeah, you've got Karthus, Twisted Fate, Ari, AP. Um, the reason why I feel like the mix up is very reasonable is because like going level 9 is much easier in this set. It's a lot easier to play around a legendary, like a 5 cost carry, a 5 cost 2 star, instead of yeah, having to play for a 4 cost carry.
Yeah, and that is something that I also really want to get into later on, which is the leveling differences. You bring up a good point there. Let's talk about 5 costs now, as you've just mentioned them. Um, I wouldn't necessarily call it a pet peeve of mine, but in previous sets, and this is something that they do and have been experimenting with, I prefer when there are more 5 cost units, really. So there are 8 in this set. In some previous sets, we've had as low as 7, and we have had 9 before as well. Um, I really like having more 5 cost units
Mhm.
personally because I feel like it increases the payoff of going level 9. In this set, of course, you can go level 10 as well. We will talk about that later. However, having access to multiple different 5 costs and loads of different ones with loads of different traits and abilities and standalone usefulness and so on, um, I think lends itself to a game where it's enjoyable to get to level 9. However, these 5 costs look fucking crazy.
Yep.
They
Yep.
look so good. Talk to me a little bit about your PBE experience with the legendary units so far.
Yeah, no, this legendary pool feels great to play around. I would dare say it definitely feels like up there in that like top sort of tier of legendary pools that we've gone to play around, in the sense that most of these are carries, like most of these legendaries are carries, that are very satisfying to build around, and the ones that aren't carries are like very like are they either very powerful supports or like very strong tanks. Just to quickly touch on things like we got like got Alawi, which is just an insane frontline unit. You've got she summons 2 tentacles that you can move around. They're very similar to like the Azir soldiers actually from Step 4. So I know you
Oh,
actually
nice.
mentioned that in
Yes.
particular of something of a mechanic you'd like to return. So that's back in Alawi.
Prediction, baby.
So
That's
yeah.
so good.
hmm Sonos sort of does the set 8 Aphelios thing pretty cool, where you've got 3 different modes to choose from. She can be a support or a carry. I think that's pretty sweet. Um, yeah, and then you've just got a bunch of like like dedicated carry units like Lucian, Jin, Kiana, a little bit of like utility like Ziggs. Kane is sort of your like Kane is sort of your like generic 5 cost, that you can sort of throw into any comp and get value out of. And then lastly you got Yorick, who's this sort of like bruisery frontliner guy who, either can be played off, just like off a splash, or you can, play as like the top end of like a vertical, like pentakill. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fantastic. And it's always nice to hear that the units feel fun to play, really, most importantly. I think that's my that's something that really important to me when it comes to 5 costs, so very happy to hear on that one. I feel like for now, that is probably where I want to leave it when it comes to units. There is
Mhm.
certainly a chance the later that we get and the closer we get to release that we can discuss again in the future. The units themselves, maybe some comps that appear and things like that. Maybe we'll discuss those on the next episode. But for now, those are just like our little early thoughts. You can't really talk about units without talking about traits, so let's go there.
Mhm.
Can I ask you first before we get very specifically to all the traits or every trait that we want to talk about?
Yeah.
Um, is there one that like you're gravitating towards? Are you playing one more than others?
I mean, I've only been able, like I said, it's the first day. I've only been able to log 6 games, so every game I've tried to play something different. So far, one of the traits that does stand out to me as being like quite strong is pentakill. Pentakill works very sort of similarly to Slayer from last set in that your units get a flat bonus damage. And the difference is that pentakill scales a bit into the fight. Once your team kills the fifth unit, your your team gets like extra attack speed in addition to that like damage bonus, which I believe ramps up as well. Um, but yeah, so I think it's like a pretty easy sort of vertical to play around because you've got two four cost carries in the form of Viego and Arthas that sort of naturally link into each other. And then you've got a nice sort of capstone legendary in the form of Yorick to play around. So it feels fairly sort of like beginner friendly and like ideal for players who, like me, like to play for fast save boards. But yeah, that's sort of the one that stuck out so far.
Yeah, I like it. And let's talk. I've got a couple written down here just from the breakdowns and from watching that I'd like to talk
Mm-hmm.
about. I think first of all, the one I want to talk about was Heartsteel, which is the new econ trait.
Yeah.
Have you seen
Mm-hmm.
it in any of your games? Are you seeing it perform? Hey, how have you seen much of it on PBE so far?
Uh, Sadly, I have not actually really seen anyone play Heartsteel, and I personally have not had the angle to play Heartsteel at all. So my info on this is very limited. Yeah, I can't say more than other than like I think the trait is pretty interesting in the sense that like it's an econ trait it's a cash out econ trait that you don't have to play like you don't have to have it 2-1 to be like useful. So yeah, but I I sadly can't comment too much on Heartsteel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I just want to talk about like
Mhm.
at it specifically. I like that the
Mhm.
cash is dependent on you. Like you just get it every 4 turns, so it's really sort of up
Yep.
to you to decide how good it's going to be, where the balance is, how useful it is, how much you need out of it. Do you trade your health
Mhm.
for potentially better rewards? Do you like you need a lot of really like quote unquote good losses to get the maximum value? These kind of things are stuff you can start thinking about. These are the kind of into game mechanics and thoughts that you can start having when you're playing a thing like this. I like it much more than play 3 units, lost streak, get to 4-2, and then just hope to God that you eventually win. Things like
Yeah.
Fortune and Hex Tech, Piltover,
But I
Piltover,
think you're
sorry.
thinking of Piltover. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Piltover.
yeah.
Piltover, Merc, and Underground. They've all pretty
Yeah,
much worked the exact same way.
yeah. Piltover,
Yep.
Fortune, Merc, Underground, like that kind of way. Um,
To me, this was like the right evolution in how these like casual traits should be designed. And I'm pretty excited to see. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see it pan out. Like I said, it's unfortunate that this is like actually one of the only traits I haven't like encountered at all because I haven't been able to play it and I haven't really paid attention to the boards of the other people in my lobbies. So yeah.
yeah, when there's a new set as well, like imagine how like it's so difficult. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's just reading every unit at the same
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody's scouting, nobody's looking at other boards, whatever. Like, oh, cool, you
Hmm.
think this guy got this on this level? Like, that's great. Happy for them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
Another one that I wanted to talk about was Punk.
Yep.
This is just a stacking reroll trait I've written.
Hmm.
Um, and I like that they've incentivized reroll specifically by making it a trait itself, like there is a
Yep.
balance here with reroll. It's low cost. There is always one of these every set, and I'm sort of nervous to call it like good because a lot of these that
Hmm.
they have made previously are like really good for one patch and then useless kind of thing,
Yep.
like
Hmm.
it's just something that most people sort of avoid.
Yep.
Uh but this kind of thing was not useless in set 4. Like
Hmm.
this kind of trait, this kind of idea, these kind of low cost units, and the power of these low cost units. was not useless in set 4. Like it was always in some variations good. So
Mm.
I think it's got its place, and I'm glad to see that they're not like that they're bringing it back. Basically, have you seen any punk reroll? I know you spoke about Yasuo before.
Yeah.
Yasuo's not a punk, but um,
I have seen Punk being played. Yeah, it seems quite strong. I've flexed it onto my boards for a few rounds as well, just because you don't. The interesting thing about Punk is that you don't have to fully commit to the reroll strategy. The fact that your shops are simply cheaper while also like making your board stronger because of the increased punk damage, makes it such that like if you start the game with like a Jinx headliner or like a Vi headliner, you can actually play a very strong tempo strategy where because of like your you upgrade your board due to your efficient rolls, have strong you get to play a stronger board because of the bandanas. You can actually just play a regular game. You don't actually have to like reroll at all. Of course, rerolling is still very strong with Punk, but yeah, just the fact that like it's not a one-dimensional reroll trait is like pretty cool, and I've found that to be very satisfying to play so far.
there is another trait that I want to talk about that you mentioned before, and that is country. I didn't
Yep.
actually have too many notes for this. I just wrote down that I really liked how it looked. Um,
Yep.
for me, like we've talked about it a lot on this podcast. I really like trait that give big units. You know, so
Mm-mm. Yep.
it's nice to have. Tell me a little bit about country from your perspective. Have you seen it? Have you played it? Have you been watching it?
Yeah, country's very strong. A lot of it is to do with the power of Samira. But I believe that's like fully intended, because if you look at the trait, if you look at the way the traits, like the units in the trait are designed, the only full cost in it is Thresh, which is a tank. So the damage kind of has to come from Samira. Um, but yeah, I mean it's solid. You can play it either as like a win streak strategy, or you can play it for it as like a an actual reroll strategy. The 7 trait I have not actually seen because you need 2 emblems for it. And emblems this set are much harder to get than previous sets. So yeah, I have not seen the 7 version of it yet. But I mean, I suppose you also can have the headliner that gives +1, right? But the tricky thing with headliner is that like it only has a 50% chance of giving you the desired, right? And a lot of the times, if you're rerolling, you're not gonna pass up on 3 copies of the unit you want. So like for tempo reasons, right? Like you're not going to like let's say you get past executioner, like let's say you get shown executioner Samira, you are not going to like roll past that to try to get country Samira, because yeah, the tempo of just getting those 3 Samiras straight away is much better. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agreed. Although I do remember in set 4 and 4.5 when you would donkey roll for keeper cannon all the time, and you wouldn't take the other one
That's fair.
because it was useless.
Although, yeah, that's a good point, and like to slightly allude to that, like that'll like this point will link into something later on, but I think like this set in particular, donkey rolling, it will be like is like will be heavily punished, and you're actually heavily incentivized to not like avoid donkey rolling. So yeah.
Yeah, this set's more chill, man. There's like some nice music playing. The boards look cool. All the units are singing and dancing. You know, like you just chill. I had one more that I wanted to talk about, and this is one of my very
Yep.
few quote unquote concerns with this set, just based on where we are right now.
Yep.
And that's
Hmm.
the EDM trait.
Yep.
And I wrote down that it's giving me hacker vibes. um,
Yeah.
it's giving me hard to balance. You know, it's giving me difficult but really overpowered in the wrong hands kind of vibes, you know. Have you encountered
Yeah.
much EDM? Have you what are your sort of
Um.
thoughts on it early on?
Okay. I'm actually kind of confused as to, like how this trait actually even works. Because I've like seen people run it, and I think I've put it on a board, but I've not actually like observed or paid enough attention to figure out how this even works.
This
Do
is a
you
really
do you want to
difficult.
care to enlighten?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
do you
is
want
a
to
really
enlighten me as to
difficult
like what
one
actually happens?
because more
Yeah.
in his breakdown says this is the weirdest trait. This he basically says something like this is the stupidest trait we've ever made, or this is the hardest trait we've ever made, or like this is going to
Right.
be really hard to figure out.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Basically, when you have all of them together, this is from what
Okay.
I'm like gleaming from my notes that I wrote down. It seems like it picks one of the EDM units. And then with
Okay.
all the EDM units on your board, all the other EDM units then cast the ability of the main EDM unit as well as their initial ability after a certain breakpoint.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
Mort says that like there are multiple Lux, like you can if you make Lux the EDM whatever, all your EDM
Yeah.
units shoot Lux laser, basically.
Oh, okay, okay.
And
That's
guys,
pretty cool.
I should mention as well, we're only 6 hours out from PBE coming out, so for
Yeah.
like by the time you hear this, a lot of this stuff could change. That might not even be fully correct. It's not an easy trait to understand. When I was listening to Mort describe it, I just thought to myself, man, this sounds like it's going to be a fucking nightmare to balance. So this is one of my things where I'm like, I put a note in it, come back in 2 weeks. Let's see if it's as good or as bad as maybe we think it is, and go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a only time will tell. I have no clue how this trait even works still. We'll see.
Yeah, that's just a wait and see. So like whatever we said now is basically a don't worry about it. We'll come back to it in a week's time.
Yeah.
Um, that's pretty much it that I had for traits. Were there any other traits that you really wanted to discuss or talk about? We can do
Mm,
like I said at the start. We're basically going to do like a full breakdown for the set release
yep,
itself.
yep, yep, yep. 8-bit is kind of cool in terms of what I like in terms of what you can do with it if you manage to get up to 6 8-bit, where you get like a max of like cash out. I haven't been able to do that yet, but I have seen videos and it does seem really cool. Otherwise, I think like those are like the main ones, like what they're touching about without like you know going too deep on basically everything. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we covered.
Okay, here's what I want to know. I've got one more question. Which
Mm-hmm.
is the unit that gives a bunch of Seraphine spotlights? What's the trait that gives all the,
Hmm.
the, the
Oh,
spotlights
that's
along the
KDA.
whole? That's
Yeah, yeah,
KDA.
KDA.
Okay.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, have you encountered much KDA? See, guys, like I watched a lot of
Mm-hmm.
this with mute while I was at work,
Mm.
so I didn't even know what half this stuff was, but I just saw all the
Um,
socialite
mhm.
spotlights and was really interested.
I think in terms of strength right now, KDA feels like it's definitely on the weaker side. Um, it's I mean, I definitely like how it's designed in terms of like all of the spotlight houses and stuff. It looks really really cool. But it's definitely designed to be sort of relatively sort of beginner friendly, relatively sort of entry level in terms of like how you play around it. Right, it's just like big vertical. Play the units around. You pick you buy the units to say KD on it, right? Other than that, though, it's not too interesting. The trait itself just gives big stat boosts in like health, AP, and attack speed, I think. But yeah, like it's literally day one PvE, so like obviously the strength of it is subject to change. But yeah, I do think the visual aspect of it is definitely a highlight.
Okay, let's move on to the big picture. I want to talk about the mechanics of the new set, the uh, the big the big changes. I guess first things first, and we have touched on it previously, and we will come back to our buy sell rework game eventually in the next couple of weeks or months. Um,
Yeah.
there are no more heroes, legends, if you would prefer. There are no hero augments, which we will get onto. But the removal of legends, Sol, your initial impression?
I think it was needed. I think that like the 9.0, 9.5 iterations of Legends are not healthy for the game overall. And that while I think the concept of Legends is not, I don't think it's like unsalvageable. I think it can definitely be reworked. But I think it's like very clear that like we needed to take a set off at least, where we didn't have legends.
And now let's talk about the main mechanics of set 10. Portals
Mhm.
return. How do you feel about
Yep.
portals having returned?
Um, I like portals. I'm a big proponent of portals. I think they add a solid amount of variety to the game. I think funnily enough, like they more than stuff said that like the portals wouldn't be as sort of like powerful as the set 9 portals were. And I think that's like only like half true. So like there aren't like any of like the really insane portals. Like there's no like portal that just gives you like Pandora's Bench or whatever, for example. But like a lot of the portals are like the same power level as like the average portal in set 9. So like for example, like there's a portal that gives like double that makes every component like carousel double component. There's a portal that makes it so like the first augment is like is a prismatic. There's like an augment that like there's not sorry, there's like a portal that starts everybody with like 3 costs or something. So like the portals overall are like quite powerful. And they're definitely um game impacting for sure. Which I'm happy about. Like I said, I do like portals. And I like the variety that they add.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I wrote when I was looking at the portals and skimming through them was that it feels like a simpler but more effective version of portals this time around. Like I think that
Hmm.
there are much more interesting, at the very least for gameplay, portals. And I love that they can help determine the direction of the augments as well. I think you bring up a good point about like how they fit in with the whole state of the game as well. Like I think like it makes it really interesting being able to
Yeah.
kind of pick when your prismatic will be, or if you want to go in and play a certain way and you're looking for certain things. Like I do really enjoy that. Are there any there like that you played today that you really liked? Did you play anything new today that you remember, or anything like that?
Mm. I think I briefly saw like a really insane one that like we got one guide by it and like oh sorry I guess that's kind of basically I saw like an insane one that like everyone wanted to play, but like one person voted for something else. Yeah. We didn't get to play it.
Oh,
But it was
bummer.
basically like all headliners had like +1 to like both traits.
Yes. Yep.
Like they
Yeah.
were +1 to like the alternate trait as well. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sick. But
Yeah.
yeah, sadly did not get to play it, but it does
That
look
one
very cool.
seems literally insane. They're also one of the things that I thought was really interesting about portals is that they're actually holding back a bunch of them until next
Yep.
year. So I thought that was a really interesting idea as well. You know, we're not getting a point 0.5 set, of course, thank God. But for
Yep.
me,
Yep.
I really, I think it's a really good idea to kind of add in, like, add and subtract portals throughout
Mhm.
the set because it's going to be a long set.
Yep.
It's gonna feel
Definitely.
twice as long because it's gonna be twice as long.
Yep.
There's gonna be less newness, and hopefully reasonable balance the whole way throughout. So I think it's really good to have these kind of things that they can drop in on certain patches and take things out and bring things in. And portals is a really good way to do that because it will
Mhm.
continue to make the
Yep.
game feel very, very different.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't have too much else to say on portals. Did you
Mhm.
have anything else that you wanted to discuss when it came to the mechanics of portals or anything like that? Do you find that it's
Mhm.
still better than initial carousel?
Oh, definitely. I think that like portals provide us with like the cleanest solution to removing opening carousel. I think that like now that we've gone basically 2 sets without it, we're like firmly in the camp of like we're not gonna go back to this, and I'm very happy. So I would not be surprised if portals are permanent for like the rest of TFT. And I think that like I think I'm happy with that. I think like portals are sort of the right balance between like not like defining the game enough to the point that like the portal that's like selected sort of decides everything, but also being sort of like they are impactful enough to where like you still have to consider like the portal and whatever you got from the portal in terms like in how it affects your gameplay, right? But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, really big agree with you on that one. Let's talk. Augments. This is a big one.
Mhm.
There
Yep.
are too many to name, and there are too many changes for the existing
Mhm.
augments to talk about. But the big thing that I think we need to talk about when it comes to augments is that there are no plus ones anymore. There are no plus one trait
Yep.
augments at any level.
Yep.
I've written down that this was the best decision that they've ever made. Is that being too hyperbolic? I think this is one of the greatest choices they could have made for a brand new set.
I don't know if it's the best decision they've ever made. I think it certainly makes sense for this set, given that like headliners naturally give you ways to get plus ones for your traits. Um, but I mean, I will say though, like one of the major highlights immediately is that the augment system definitely feels sort of more smoother to play on average, just because a lot of the times, um, you're not offered a crest or a crown or a heart that you can't use at all. So that removal of a lot of potential dead options makes it so that you're much more likely to find something that you can use them, take advantage of.
Yeah. Were there any I guess because you've played a bunch of games so far
Mhm.
already, so it would be really interesting to hear your perspective on how augments played out actually in set 10. Like
Yeah.
picking your
Mhm.
augments. Talk to me a little bit about what that felt like, about the choices that you were making and that kind of thing.
I think like now that like we're at set 10, right? Augments have the augment system has existed for a pretty long time now. It came out in set 6.0, which is like 2 years ago now. Um, the team has had a lot of time to refine the system. I think set 10 especially, it definitely feels like I mean it kind of was already a good spot like last set, but I think now more than ever, augments feel like they distinctly belong into like specific buckets, whether it be like an econ augment, a combat augment, an item augment, utility augment, all that kind of stuff. So, when that like that presents a very interesting puzzle in terms of decision making, because any given time you have to like look at your board. When you're picking your augment, right? You have to look at your board. You have to evaluate, what do I need more? Is it just raw stats for my team? Is it items so I can itemize my forecasts? Is it econ? Is it an econ? Is it an econ augment so I can, I can get some money and I can actually go up in levels. Yeah, I think that like, yeah, the augment system feels good to play with. I personally think it's felt good to play with basically ever since like set 9.0. Legends kind of ruined it for that just kind of ruined it though. But I think overall though, like yeah, Almonds are in a good spot, and they have been in a good spot for a while now.
Yeah, and like we sort of talked about at the beginning, this is like another one of those little natural progressions for augments. We've sort of reached the point where there's so many eyes on it. It's so enveloped in the game itself that they have they have a bunch of different options, and that they know
Hmm.
where to go with them. They know where to get the most out of these kind of things. So very pleased to hear that it feels like it's good to play. Did you feel like the decision making aspect of augments was where you wanted it to be? Did you feel like you were choosing between power and flexibility? Did you feel like it was all power? Did you feel yourself looking for anything in particular when you were choosing augments?
I think like given how early it is, we still, obviously we don't have data from tactics or tools. We don't know, what the best in slot augment combinations are. Yeah, and don't have stats to aid us on that. So a lot of it is just based off of intuition. I'll say that like I lean towards a very sort of boring standard like fast eight playstyle. So I tend to just take the low variance augments that either give more items, provide generic combat strength. And to that extent, like I've been pretty happy with it. I will say though, I have seen some pretty wacky augments that like look kind of insane and really interesting. I think I saw one today that was like you can only get at 3-2, I think. And the way it works is it's a gold augment that makes you sell your entire board, but double the gold value.
Oh,
It
I
makes the
watched
next
Kyun take
four
this
yeah,
today.
it makes the next four shop refreshes free. I thought that just looked absolutely insane. I don't even I don't know, not insane in the sense like I think it's good. Like I just think it's insane in like the literal definition of the word insane. Like I don't know about that one, but it does look really interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, I watched Kieran take it and get like unbelievably dizzy. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was just his second game of PBE that he'd played too.
Mhm.
And he had no idea what
Yeah,
was going on.
it feels so weird because like for you to get the most value out of it, you needed to do it with a board of upgraded units. But if you have a board of upgraded units, that means that like either A, you're win streaking and like you don't want to sell your whole board, or like B, you have pretty clear direction because because you got your units are upgraded. So I don't know about that one,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
funny because
interesting.
it also feels like a little bit of a bailout. Like if you have just a bunch of you, like if you're like lose streaking and you have a bunch of stuff you don't really want and no real direction, like it could potentially be seen as a bit of a bailout option as well. Like here's a bunch of gold,
Potentially.
level up,
But like I
try
said,
and find
your
something you want.
units, like I said, your units need to be upgraded though for it to like
Yeah,
give
that's
you
true.
like enough gold because of like how the scaling works.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I don't know about that.
yeah. I mean,
Like
to
to
be
put it into
fair,
perspective, right? Yeah.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say like 9 gold's 9 gold. You know what I mean? Like that's just what.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like what you want out of an augment. Like I was just gonna say, like to put it into perspective, like if you have a one, a 1 star 1 cost, doubling that is literally just two. It's 2 golds plus one. Whereas like a 2 star 1 cost becomes 6 gold, right? Which is like
Yeah.
which is a 4 gold difference, and like this difference only gets more insane for like like a 2 star 2 cost or like a 3 star 2 cost. Like 3 star 2 cost
18
plus,
gold.
would be 18 gold. Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
+9. But anyway, point is I don't know how to make this augment good. It's interesting. There are some crazy augments, but yeah.
Yeah, and I like it when they do some wacky shit like that. Like it's always good to have
Mm.
some wackiness in the game.
Yep, that's true.
I don't have too much else to say on augments for now. Like I said, we will go down and do a big breakdown of everything that has been going on when we do our official Set 10 preview in a couple of weeks' time before launch. One of the
Yep.
big things that I know you wanted to talk about, and this is something that I will defer to you on first of all, is the
Sure.
leveling
Yeah.
changes.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
this is so good, and I just want to hear from
Mhm.
someone that's played the game so far, like how it feels.
Yeah. The leveling changes like feel awesome. I would go as far as to say that like it feels like such a natural like evolution that like I feel like it's literally the beginning of like a new era for the game. So like if like the creation of augments like 6.0 was like a new era. The creation of level 10 now is like another is like the next era basically. um I think one of like the biggest sort of changes in gameplay that just feels so much better to play around now is that there feels like a very sort of natural progression between stage 4 to 5 and then 5 to 6, in the sense that like stage 4 now feels that like basically everybody, if they want to, will and should be at level 8, and then stage 5 feels like similarly, if players play stage if they players play stage 4 well, they'll be able to get to level 9 without most of the time without being forced to like reroll all of their gold back at level like back down at level 8. um and then level 10 feels like a very corner case where I haven't really seen anyone actually go level 10. But the vast majority of games now are like ending with players on level 9, assuming they're playing like a normal like non-reroll fast eight board. And I think that's like I think that's very I think one of the main reasons why this is very healthy for the game is that even in previous sets, you if you play like a regular fast eight board, for you to win the lobby, you typically had to go level 9 anyway. But the problem always felt that because going level 9 was so expensive, couldn't justify the risk of essentially of greeding gold to go 9
Yeah.
at the cost of losing too much HP and dying before you can go level 9. Now it feels like if you get to level 8, you can roll for a semi-stable board and save enough. You can stop at like 20 or 30 gold, right? Assuming you've built a reasonably strong board, you should pretty much always be able to get to level 9. And I think for me that feels very good to play around. Like that feels very good, very satisfying to play around. So yeah, and yeah, overall I've been like a massive fan of the living changes. I'm really happy and yeah, really excited to play more games because of it.
I have two questions for you that I just want to follow up on as well. The first is, can you get a chosen 4 cost on level 7?
You cannot. You
Good.
absolutely cannot. Yes,
Can you get a chosen 5 cost on 9?
you can, but it's not very likely. It's only 10%.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. My initial thought there would have been that you probably couldn't, and that they would lock it
Yeah,
behind level
yeah,
10.
yeah. I think I like that they settled with you can, but it's unlikely.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably the best. That's the best of both worlds, really. There. Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I'm like you. Um, we
Yep.
do this podcast together. We've been friends. We've known each other a while now. We play TFT the
Yep.
same way. We do the exact same thing.
Yes.
We're like
Yep.
fast eight. We're like fast eight flex
Yep.
gamers. Like this is our play style. Like this is the like chosen like set 4, like peak of our
Yep.
powers, highest on ladder. Like this is the kind of area that we're sort of really like, and it's now to me it's crazy that it's cheaper to level now than it was then. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost unbelievable that like level
Yeah. I
9
was
is
definitely
just an
shocked.
inevitability. Oh,
You're
Dave.
telling me it's only 48 XP to level from 7 to 8? This is incredible. I just got every 8 every game. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
that is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to feel about it. I'm like so excited, but I have no way of knowing if it's like the best possible thing that's ever happened or not because I haven't played any games yet. But I'm really looking forward to it, and that's really exciting. And I'm really, really glad that they have learnt from how badly received set nine's leveling changes were.
Yeah.
Realistically,
For sure.
they could have kept
Yeah.
it. They could have doubled
Mhm.
down. Like it was reasonable, not reasonable. It would have been totally unreasonable for them to double down. But if we were sitting here with the same leveling restrictions, I personally don't think we would be as excited, basically,
Oh, the game would be much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that is a
I
really
think with the old leveling system, you probably have to make it so 2-star 4 class can show up at level 7, which we already know
yeah,
is not great. But
which would then just ruin the whole set because nobody's
it
going
kind of
level
would.
8 at all.
Yeah, it kind of really would. Yeah.
So that is a good thing. That is a really, really good thing. I'm really excited to play more and to test this out. Um,
Mhm.
so to be honest with you, the last place that I want to talk about for set 10, before we briefly touch on OC's world performance and then get out of here, I want
Yeah.
to touch on items. And this is one where I want to divert to you as well. There have been a few item changes, not as many as perhaps we were expecting, but there have been a few. Do you want to lead the way here? Talk to me about some of these new items that we've got.
Yeah, sure thing, absolutely. I think it's off the top of my head, it's 2 new items that we got. Glove chain became. Okay, I already forgot the name. Glove chain became a frontline item that gives damage reduction and like HP. I'm pretty sure. I actually do not know the name of this item, but the point is that yes, it's another solid generic frontline item that is going to be pretty good like as like a generic slam. Damage reduction has traditionally been the most desirable stat for frontline units. Um, compared to all the other alternatives. So I think it's been solid so far and been satisfying to build and slam and play. The other big one that like I am kind of like scratching my head on, I think is really weird, is it decided to rework rapid fire cannon into red buff. And this is like literally like set 3 red buff. Like it is the same thing, aside the fact that it gives attack speed. Um, which I'm not. I'm honestly not sure about. Like, as in, I think RFC probably needed to be reworked into something else because like RFC is just so problematic. But I don't know if red buff was like the right direction in the sense that like the game already had 2 anti-heal items in the form of Sunfire and Morello. So I really do not know if the game needed a third anti-heal item. In the like with red buff. Um, I don't know. I'm personally of the opinion that like it's a bit of a miss. I really would have liked them to like instead rework rapid fire cannon into like a much more premium attack speed item. kind of like the opposite of Ginsu's Rage Blade. I feel like that would have made a lot more sense. Like an item that just front loads a lot of attack speed would have made a lot more sense. But as it stands, yeah, rebuff is back in the game. So yeah, set 3 Blaster enjoyers. Yay.
Yay, Echo players. Yay, Cybernetic Echo, red buff. Yay.
Yay.
We talked about this on our items episode a few weeks ago where I said I didn't think they would ever bring back red buff because there's so much augment anti-heal
Yep.
in the game, and a lot of units now have innate shred and anti-heal within their kits. Um, I'm pretty surprised too that red buff's back actually, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I'm very
Um,
surprised to be
they could
honest.
have
Yeah, I would
made
not
it
have expected
something
this.
different, so I guess we'll wait and see. I am notice I do feel like that potentially there are very slightly less AD units that need it right now, but this set
Mm-hmm.
is going to be a long set, and that's certainly something to
Yep.
consider. I'm looking forward to seeing how it sort of shakes out in the next couple of weeks as well, whether they feel they need to change it, mess it around. We only have one more thing to talk about when it comes to set 10, our first impressions. That is headliners, the returning new mechanic.
Yep.
There is a slight difference between it and Chosen, however, and that difference being that every single unit has an individual headliner bonus, as well as receiving the Chosen treatment of being a 2-star unit that you can purchase to upgrade that gives you 2 of a specific trait. I
Uh.
think, first of all,
Mhm.
when it comes
Yeah.
to headliners versus Chosen, that this is a nice evolution. Do you have any initial thoughts on headliners themselves?
Yeah. I hate to be that guy, but slightly what you yeah basically what you just said is slightly incorrect. The headliner bonus is actually the same as in like how Chosen worked as well. So Chosen's also gave their respective like unit a increased like buff for being like a Chosen. So that system is actually like the same. The main difference is that the headliner effects are like at least to me the headliner effects are like somewhat weaker than the Chosen counterparts were. Although in some cases they're like very powerful. And typically the way they've like gone about balancing it is that like 1 cost units and like 2 cost units, like units that like you would reroll, tend to have much more transformative like headliner abilities compared to like flexible like 4 costs and 5 costs. But yeah, the actual main difference between headliners and chosen, which is like an insane, like an incredible change, and like one of the key reasons why I said at the start of the podcast, I think flex play is going to make a really big comeback, is that um, even if you have a headliner purchased, you can still continue to see more new headliners in your shop, which you cannot buy unless you sell your current headliner. But yeah, this single change is so like is yeah it's such a drastic sort of paradigm shift that basically it forces you to constantly have to reevaluate your board and like rethink your sort of options and what you're playing towards, like when you see new alternate headliners. Like now you're no longer part like one of the biggest problems with chosen was that when you bought a chosen you would no longer be able to see new chosens in your shop, which meant that you effectively were locked into that single like line, right? Headliners make it so that you don't feel like you're closing off other lines by committing to a headliner, and at the same time you will be rewarded for successfully pivoting off of your headliner to a different headliner when better opportunity presents. So a really simple example could literally just be you start the game off, you buy a 1 cost headliner as your tank, for example. You get like stage 3 and then a 2 cost headliner shows up, right? A 2 cost like carry headliner shows up, and so now you want to be able to you want to be able to play the much more powerful unit. So you have to move your units around. You have to sell your old headliner, buy the new one, and then play around that accordingly. And I like that like there's a reasonable tension between wanting to lock your headliner in like and not wanting to lock it in, because the other thing with how headliners show up is that when you don't have a headliner at all, you are guaranteed to see a new headliner every single shop refresh. Whereas when you have a headliner on your board, you only see a new headliner every 4 shop refreshes. Which is really cool because it means that like you also do not like you also are not rewarded for brainlessly clicking on the first headliner you see. And it actually incentivizes you sometimes to wait a few rounds because of that guaranteed new headliner like every shop refresh. You see this you see this like that is most prevalent in the early game. But yeah, anyways, yeah, that's sort of my piece of headliners, and yeah, they're awesome and go for the game.
I can't believe that it changed so simple as they still show up when you have one. Can transform the game so much. And just the second that I saw that in practice, like watching someone else play the game, I was like, man, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be
Yeah,
good. Like, that is just such a smart way of bringing decision making to the forefront of the game. Really, 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 really smart decision, and really, really looking forward to seeing it play out. And you're totally right as well. Like the flexibility and the balance surrounding when you see them and when to take them versus when not to take them is a really crucial part of the game. It was also the bit that people hated about set 4 the most. Like feeling locked in or feeling like they had to specifically be at certain places at certain points in the game to compete for high priority chosen units as well in set
yeah,
4. Um, and this I feel like does a really good job of eliminating that because you're really focusing on flexibility and building from positions of strength and switching it up and being flexible. Man, that's exciting. Really, really exciting. Our full set 10 breakdown before it goes live, we will do in a couple of weeks' time. I think we've got a 2 week PB, 3 week PB, 2 week.
2 week PvE.
So, in about 2 weeks' time, we will do our big preview, which will be really fun. And we will break down the goings on, what's been happening, what we've been up to, if we've been playing. I'm sure we both will have been playing a lot. Set 10 for now, we say goodbye after only 6 hours of it being released. But we do not say goodbye to the podcast, however, because there is something that we have to talk about. And the final thing that we have to talk about this evening is OCE's Worlds performances. Well, I want to do a quick 5 minutes on the Worlds performances. For me, really just to say a big shout out, to our OCE representatives. Once again, going into an international tournament with anti-hype. I guess like a lot of people underestimating OCE, and it has been a
Hmm.
pretty consistent theme of this
Yep.
podcast and OCE's performances on the world stage, where some respect is needed. you know, the 2 reps that we sent this year have performed so well, and Worlds, despite the fact that a lot of people didn't like the patch, was actually an incredible tournament. Like it was a really, really, really good tournament with some really, really high level TFT. Um, yeah, I guess where I just wanted to start here was just basically saying like, you know, there needs to be a lot of respect put on OC's representatives when it comes to TFT World Championships. Doesn't matter who it is. Sol, your thoughts on the matter?
Oh, I mean, absolutely, right? Huge shout out to both Tamura and Kiwi for doing us proud at Worlds. I personally followed pretty much Tamura's run through the entire event, watching basically all of the games. And yeah, it's truly yeah, and it was a truly heartbreaking final game where Tamura I believe needed a third to make the top eight, but unfortunately got a seventh. But yeah, I mean, I think that like OCE is it's just I think it's just one of those like unfortunate things where like because OCE is just such a small region and it's traditionally being ignored a lot in other sort of esports that we're sort of the victim of that in TFT as well. We're overlooked despite the fact that our region reps consistently punch above their weight at basically every worlds that we've ever sent reps to. Um, especially like we should definitely be considered like one of the sort of stronger regions even when compared to yeah, sorry, especially when compared to like a lot of the sort of more medium like and smaller regions out there. We have great players here. We have players who easily rival the quality of some of the best players from NA, EU, China even yeah, like I think that like I'm excited. I guess I'm excited to see what comes next. And yeah, I really enjoyed Worlds, and I was really proud of the performance that both Tomura and who we put up.
I think one of the big things, that was actually a really good thing to come out of this Worlds that wasn't an OC performance is a Japanese player winning. This is one of the things I think that in the long run will do a lot of good for the respected power level of quote unquote smaller regions. Um, if we can't get respect for like top five, like coming fifth, for top eight places, for battling it through to getting to day twos all the time, these are the kind of things where it's time to start comparing OCE players to NA players, you know, um, and it's time to start bringing those regions like Korea, Japan, Latin America, SEA, those regions will be bringing the average level of TFT up. The average overall power level of TFT goes up. And that can only be a good thing, like this World's NA sent a bunch of players who most people had probably never even seen play a single game if they didn't follow TFT like religiously, aside from maybe like Karam and Weijin, that kind of thing. So TFT as a growing esport, it's really, really important that regions like ours get a lot of natural respect, and I'm really pleased to see that our players did really well. So a final congratulations for Tamura and Huey. We've had them both on the podcast last week. Gonna let them enjoy some downtime, let them get into set 10, not have to worry about
Yep.
the competitive circuit for a little while, and hopefully have them back on again soon. Guys, that is going to do it for the podcast this evening. We promised a relatively short one. We've ended up over an hour. That is just how things go around here. That's okay. For the final time on set 10, it's feeling really good. Really looking forward to the direction it's going. I'm going to be away for a couple of days, so I'm going to miss some of it. What I want you to do, if you're keen, is to stick around. I have a little bit of an announcement after the episode, as I mentioned on Twitter. Um, and a big final congratulations to Tamura and Huey on their set 9.5 Worlds performance. Sol, a final word from you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Set 10 going well. Where can people find you?
Yeah, it's great to be here as always. Soul TFT is my Twitch. I keep alluding to this every pod, but yeah, no, I will be back. Set 10 release. Yeah, keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into streaming. So yeah.
Guys, it is coming very soon. The two of us will be back to consistent streaming TFT, playing games together, separately, climbing, getting up there, pushing, making podcast content. If you want to hear a little bit about OCE, roll down OCE Bootcamp Set 10, um, prize money on offer, special thing, stick around. I just want to talk about it briefly on the episode. But until then, thank you for listening to Season 3, Episode 6 of the Roll Down TFT podcast. What are your thoughts on set 10? Let us know, and we will be back soon. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining us. Please do stick around. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.